2-year-old, and it works. It literally does. And I'm grateful because I understand it, and I can comprehend it real good, and I'm just excited. I get more and more excited once I learn more stuff, because I'm like, oh my gosh, like, oh, all I have to do is this, and all I have to do is that. It's literally step by step. Yeah.
So where are you positioned right now in your process? Do you have like a business license or business setup, an EIN number? Are you at that point?
Not at the moment. I'm actually tweaking a lot of stuff as far as like my business plan and my actual plan. I'm starting from point A, so I'm just soaking up the information to get everything in order so I can apply for my business credit, apply for my authority, apply for different lines of credit and things of that nature.
Okay, so I have a screen open, a Word document for very brand new individuals like you, right? And I think I did this before, but we just never got a chance to complete it, right? Can you see the screen?
Yes, I can.
All right, so number one would be, you mentioned business plan.
Yes, sir.
So, and all that entails in a business plan, right? Your mission statement, executive summary, financial projections, things like that.
Yes, sir.
I'm gonna type that in. I don't want to say anything without having it.
I write everything down, so I'm writing all this down.
And you can pretty much look up, and I think I got
you do. Yeah, and it's very helpful. I really appreciate it.
Ahí está, déjame ir a ver cuánto va a ser el trabajo este. Okay.
And let's see. Financial projections. All right, so you'll have a business, and this is like your foundation of what your business. So what is your mission statement? So you only you would know for your specific brokerage, right? Everybody's different. Everybody's individuals. Everybody knows their what their brokerage is going to be, right? So so mission statement, whatever your mission is, I'm assuming it's going to be like something customer service related or what have you.
Yes, sir.
What is your executive summary? What are your financial projections? 3 years, 5 years, whatever. So the outline of a business plan, you can take and get more granular, break it down, and apply those concepts into the business plan later on, right? So now the next thing, obviously, after that is, well, you have to actually form the business, right?
Mm-hmm.
So business formation, either like a license, whether it's LLC, S Corp, depending on the legal structure of the business.
Yeah.
And then you take that and you get a random number assigned to your business that's called a EIN number. So you go to the irs.gov website to do that. And because you have to have a business in place prior to receiving an EIN number. So when you go to the irs.gov website, they're going to ask you, what's the name of your business? They may even ask for like articles of corporation or some type of proof of that. Because this is the IRS, they want to, So let's see. Make sure. I muted everybody. You can unmute yourself later, Bianca. So after that, you form the business, right? So the third step is now you get into the requirements of the broker, right? So Well, even before then, you got a business form. Well, yeah, apply for broker authority, right? And there's two types of broker authority. Of course, you want to apply for the broker of property authority, right?
Yes, sir.
Not the broker of household goods. You're not going to be a moving company broker, right?
Okay.
If you are, you're not going to make a lot of money.
Right. Exactly. I understand.
So then apply for. So you get your authority, then you're going to need a bond, some type of bond. So the purpose of the surety bond or any bond is to protect the carriers and the shippers from, it covers them from unfair or unethical practices by you, the broker. Someone can file a claim against your bond for something that you did that was unethical, unfair, or illegitimate as a broker. So they'll file a claim against the bond. So the bond company will cover or pay for that claim, and then they'll come back to you and say, hey, you were in the wrong, you got to pay us back, right? So,
Okay.
So apply for a bond. I got too many spaces in here, let me see. Okay, so, and the ones that we are speaking of are the BMC-84, which is the surety bond based off of credit, or the BMC-85, which is a trust fund, which is most people don't have $75,000 just sitting around in escrow. But if you happen to do, you can put that in an escrow account, and that'll be your bond coverage,
Okay.
right? So,
Yes, sir.
but the purpose of the bond, again, is for protection of, for the shippers and carriers against you brokers doing unethical, illegitimate, or unfair practices with your brokerage. So if someone files a claim against your bond. So, matter of fact, is to, and if you have any questions about that, we can break it down. Do you understand?
I do understand that. Yes, sir.
Okay. So protect the carrier and or customer or customers, which are the shippers, from unfair, unethical, or illegitimate, if I can spell legitimate. You gotta,
Okay.
phonetics, right?
Right.
Practices. So purpose of the bond is to protect the carrier or carriers, put that in S as well, and or customers / shippers from unethical, unfair, illegitimate practices from brokers. Okay, all right. So then you need also apply for the authority broker of property. This is going to be, of course, let me put the www.fmcsa.dot.gov website.
Okay.
That's where you apply there. As well as the bond, you go through that process, apply for, and then you apply for your process agent. Process agent, or they call them process servers. These are the people who, you've been served. They give you paperwork, you've been served, right?
Okay. Yes, sir.
And that is called, the form is called the BOC-3, okay?
Yep, I read about that.
Okay, so, and that should also be on the site as well. And then also apply for your UCR, Unified Carrier Registration. So these are So when you're brand spanking new, know nothing about it, right? So this is the outline that you can follow, and you can add to, take away, tweak, what have you. Everyone should have a business plan starting out, right? Because everything starts from a thought, from the thought in your mind. Hey, I think I want to be a broker. So you're thinking about it, right? I want to be a broker. So what's next? Okay, well, let me formulate a business plan and outline of how I want to structure that. What's my mission statement? What's my executive summary? What's my financial projections? How do I look in 3 years? How am I supposed to look in 5 years based off of my projections? I'm forecasting how much I'm going to make based off of the level of work I'm going to bring into my company. Thus, those are projections. You're forecasting, right? So, and then you just start your business name, business license name. Put that there. Business license, etc. LLC, whether you structure it legally, LLC, S Corp, partnership, whatever, however you want to do that. And of course, you want to have experts in those particular areas on your team, attorneys, accountants, CPAs, things like that, because you don't want to make anything, especially in the beginning portions of it, to make mistakes in that process, because that way you don't have to circle back around to fix those errors. When you're further down along in your process and you realize you didn't do it correctly at the beginning stages, then you have to circle back, and that can be potentially a different, more expenses, more time, more whatever, right? So,
yeah.
So what else? UCR, Unified Carrier, and you can look these up. I'm not going to go too much in detail.
Yes, sir. Yeah, a lot of this is familiar. It's detailed within the information that I've been reading. So yes, sir.
So what else we need now? Now, it's becoming apparent these days that a lot of shippers are requiring brokers to have insurance on top of what their approved carriers have, right? So, and I probably have to put an asterisk by this, because it's not a requirement for a broker, but it's a requirement if you want to get customers, and if you want to have load tenders offered to you and you accept those load tenders from these particular customers and they require insurance, then you have to consider insurance, especially if they're good loads.
Yes.
So apply for insurance. So, and some examples, if you are in a brick and mortar facility with your brokerage, then general liability, accidents happen. They may bump their head on a table, whatever. So the popular one is CCI, which is contingent cargo. And another one's called E&O, which is errors and omissions, by too many M's. Okay, so contingent upon the carrier's cargo coverage is contingent cargo. Errors and omissions protect the broker from errors and omissions. They may neglect to say something on the rate confirmation. They may make a mistake on something that in the process, because as a broker, you are arranging for the transportation of freight, of goods, of loads and stuff, right? So you may make a mistake in that process while you are arranging for the transportation of freight. That is your job. You are a logistics provider. You arrange for the transportation of freight, right? So errors and omissions, especially beginner brokers, you may want to consider that. But a lot of beginner brokers are more attentive because they don't want to make mistakes in the onset, right? So they're really meticulous about what they do. So they may say, well, I really don't need errors and omissions because I'm really particular starting out because this is the new brokerage. I'm pretty much protected like as if it's a baby, right? So they're real meticulous. So they say, well, I may not need errors and omissions, but contingent in general may be a consideration. So
yes, sir.
So outlines of freight brokering. Now, what about, so these are the requirements for and there could be others. I may be leaving things out, but that's fine. But just as a spring,
it's a great outline for me. Thank you so much. Yeah.
And then you get into your, you have to also consider expenses, right? Startup costs, keeping them minimum, expenses, your back office infrastructure, the minimum what's the bare minimum types of software that you want to consider and can afford for your company, right? Load boards, TMS systems, accounting, bookkeeping software, hardware like computers, laptops, the software that goes on those things. So these are things that also you want to put into your outline potentially. So,
Yes, sir.
so let me put, what does it say? Hardware, printers, computers, whether they are desktops or laptops, depending on if you are in a brick and mortar or if you're working from home. So hopefully this will help you out here.
Oh, yes, it will. And I remember of you guys speaking in reference of having like a virtual office and that nature too, to, you know, at least have it a little
Well,
more
at least
professional.
not necessarily a virtual office, but a virtual address. So if you're working from
Yes,
home,
sir. Yes, sir.
if you're working from home, you don't want to use a PO box and you don't want to use your physical address, then you can get a virtual address.
Yes, sir.
So yeah. Okay. So let's see, printers, computers, anything else we can think of that too. And then software, starting out, just things that could be minimal. Load boards, if I can spell that correctly. Load boards, TMS systems, transportation management. TMS is transportation management systems. An inexpensive one starting out. You may scale later, but Ascend is a good start.
Okay.
And accounting / bookkeeping, because of course you are a business now, so you want to account for that. Are there 2 Ks in bookkeeping or 1? It'll let me know if it, okay. I guess it is 2 Ks. And so that would be like a popular one, of course, is QuickBooks Online. I have that. My CPA, he's always in there because I've given him access. QuickBooks Online or any other type of accounting software. You can use a simple spreadsheet, Excel, starting out, because you may get like a few customers starting out. So you may not need to scale up yet to QuickBooks. You can use a simple Excel spreadsheet with a Microsoft Office. Oh, speaking of which, yeah. What's the latest Microsoft, what is it called? Office 365 or something like that? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I have that. I pay a little small fee for it, but yeah.
Yeah, it's a pain in my opinion, but hey.
It's a little more confusing.
Oh my God. I reverted back to the old version that I used to like access Excel, PowerPoint, and Word. So,
Yes, sir.
so there. So because you want to have some kind of Word document, word processing documentation or document, you want to have some kind of spreadsheet document, which is Excel, and possibly what else? I think those are the main 2 starting out. So, and then so this is a generalized kind of an outline for just brand spanking new, first conceive the idea of being a freight broker, right? And saying, hey, what do? I got a thought in my mind that I want to be a freight broker. Now what's next? Okay, well, do you have a plan? Do you have a business plan? Do you have a name for your company? Have you applied for a business name? Have you applied for the EI? So the steps, have you applied for the authority? Where do you go for that? And do your research on all these different steps. So
this helps. I don't feel like I'm all over the place now. So yeah, it helps.
And so once you get past this and you get your back office infrastructure set up, now it's like, okay, now let me get some customers now, right? Or even before then, because your infrastructure is not quite set up. You just got the hardware and the software for your stuff. But now you have to actually design your, I guess you would say contracts, if you will, or your agreements, right? That you're going to be sending to your customers and to your customers, right? And I said that, I like that for a reason, because carriers are your customers just as much as the shippers are your customers from a broker's perspective, okay? So the design your contracts or agreements, meaning the broker shipper agreement, and what are their contents. And it's on the website, the contents of the broker carrier agreement, the broker shipper agreement, your credentials, and then a credit application for the shipper to fill out and return to you, so you can make sure that shipper is factorable for those tenders that you are going to consider accepting, right? So because there is such a thing as a bad shipper, right? So just because you have a great conversation with the shipper on the phone, and then they send you the tender, and then you do your back end research on the company, and you discover, whoa, wait a minute, these loads aren't as good paying as I thought they were. So you have an opportunity to accept or reject tenders. You don't have to, just because they send you the tender, you don't have to accept it. You can do your research and say, okay, let me do some spot market analysis comparison to see what the carriers are being paid. Let me put my margins on top of it, see if I can make some money, whatever my percentage is, and then come back and see if that shipper say, okay, yay or nay. And if they don't, okay, well, I'm out. Just like in Shark Tank, I'm out. Right?
I like that show. Yeah.
So yeah, it's the same. So all these business concepts, that's why I love Shark Tank. Love it. So,
I do too.
So
you learn a lot though.
You learn a lot. You learn business terms, concepts, So design your contracts and agreements, business, broker, shipper agreements, and what the contents of those are. So in the minimum, I'll put in parentheses, and it's on the website, but I'm just going to just type it in here. So what do you think you need to minimally send to a potential shipper on your credentials to a shipper? What do you think you need? You think you need your bond?
Yeah, you need like all your insurance, your authority information.
Okay, so I'm gonna type bond, authority, insurance.
Your UCR.
I don't think you need your UCR.
I don't know.
You can send it, but the unified carrier, they want to make sure, okay, if I'm a shipper, so I'm a shipper, and you spoke to me on the phone, we had a great conversation. I say, send me over your packet, your broker shipper packet. Your packet is your information that I'm going to review along with the credit application, right? So okay. I want to see your bond. I want to see your authority to make sure you are who you say you are. I want to make sure you got a broker. I want to make sure you got $75,000 to cover in case you do something unethical or illegitimate or unfair, that I can file a claim against you, right? Mm-hmm. So I need to see the bond. That's important, right? Need to see that. I need to see your authority because I need to know that you are authorized to be a broker. That's important, right? Right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm listening. I'm writing down too. Yes,
okay.
Sir.
Okay. I need to, if I'm a shipper that's requiring insurance, I need to see the insurance. That's important, right?
Yeah, that's a safe zone.
Right. So what else do you, and then of course, obviously I'm going to send my my NOA form to you.
Oh yeah.
Credit application.
Credit information.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's a big one too.
That's a big one too, because you want to make sure, because most brokered loads are factored loads.
Yeah.
Because shippers are like net 30, net 45, net 60. I'm not waiting 60 days to get paid. My carrier is not waiting 60 days to get paid. So I need I need to run you through my factoring company, Mr. Shipper, so we can see if you get approved, so we can keep, this relationship going pretty good, right?
They don't want to take a risk, so you want to cover your behind.
Now we're thinking like business people, right? So, so what else? I think that should be the minimum right there, right? Some brokers may put some more fluff in it. I got a diamond rating, 5-star diamond brokerage rating, and all this other stuff, and that's fine. But if I'm a shipper and I'm operating a multi-million-dollar facility, I do not have time to read all that stuff. Nor do I care. Nor do I care. I want to make sure that you are who you say you are before I award you these tenders. Yeah. I could care less how many diamonds or how many stars you get at this point. I want to make sure that you're able to accommodate and because I need a service right now.
Yeah.
I need a logistics provider to provide services for me to move my customers' freight from my facility to my customer's facility. And there's two things involved in that. Either it's going to be an issue of rate or it's going to be an issue of capacity. So I'm going to say, okay, rate is not important to me. I'll pay anything. I'm having capacity issues. So I need trucks. And we have trucks at our shipping facility, but our freight outnumbers our trucks exponentially. So that's why I'm brokering the rest of this freight out. So you, Mr. Broker, you provide the other trucks. I got about 20 trucks, but I got 100 loads to move. I only got 20 trucks. Rate is not important. That's not the issue. I'll give you anything reasonably, right, that we come to agreement with. So I need capacity. That's why that's why we're having this conversation. If I didn't need capacity, if I didn't need capacity, I wouldn't be talking to you.
Exactly.
Right? So I'm giving you game, right? So now when you start talking to shippers, you be like, okay, and you can ask questions like this. What do you need? Because when you talk to shippers, you start to feel in the conversation that you're losing them. Just ask them openly. Now, what do you need for us to work together? Is it an issue of rate or is it capacity? What do you need?
Sir.
And how can I provide that service for you? And let's discuss numbers. Where will you be comfortable at, right? So the bond, you want to make sure that I got $75,000 in case I need to file something against your claim, against your bond that you can cover. The authority says that you are who you say you are. You are a broker registered through FMCSA and DOT. You have my insurance requirements, whatever they are, and you submitted a credit application so I'll fill that NOA form out and send it back to you. You can see if I'm factorable or not. I'm factorable, trust me. I'm a multi-million-dollar shipper. I'm far beyond factorable, but this is the process. So, so anything else you think that's needed in that broker shipper agreement?
No. Maybe references if you have any.
Yeah, you can do that. You can do that. Now, anything else that's, I would say, pertinent that we need in the broker shipper. So let's go back to the website and look at, and I'll share the screen in a second, the packets to see what we have for packets types and what they are in the on the website as we're doing the outline. So, okay, so, well, one thing we did leave out, we actually left out the actual broker shipper agreement itself, the verbiage. So let's put that in there, right? The actual literal, the literal
actual
verbiage.
Contract.
The actual contract, correct, the verbiage. So let me share the screen again. The actual verbiage, the actual agreement, the contract itself. Okay, contract, verbiage, what have you. And there's so many of them online. You can take and tweak it. Am I spelling verbiage right? I need to go back to school. Okay. All right. So verbiage, contract, however you want to term that. Okay. And so the contract itself, however many pages that is, your bond, your authority, your insurance, and your credit application. I think that's enough, right?
I think that's enough because it shows that you're covered. It shows like, your authority, that you're licensed, and it shows, that, as far as your credit, as long as they approve your credit application, you're in the win, and it has the actual agreement. I mean, I think that.
And the best way to answer that, for you to answer that question is just reverse the role. Put yourself in the role of a shipper, and I was the broker coming to you. What would you want from me, bare minimum, to get me started? And if there's anything in there that's missing, then we would add it, right? We got the contract, the broker agreement. So instead of calling this broker shipper agreement, we should call it a broker shipper packet because the agreement is actually the contract itself. So let's change this to packet. And let's change this to the actual agreement itself, which is the actual contract, right?
Yes.
Broker, that makes more sense. Okay, so those are the qualifiers there, okay? And if we need to add to that, we can. So number 11, we would do the same thing as it applies to the carrier side, your other quote unquote customer, right? This is the shipper side where you get them to, when they say, send me your packet after you've convinced them and you're potentially going to accept a tender or either accept a tender that they already have with a target rate or bid on a lane in order to get awarded a tender. So those are the scenarios that you will be presented with when you approach shippers. Okay.
So in other words, you can accept like, you know, your own specific carrier, like, or you can post your load and it's like a free for all. Like you'll have a carrier bid on the load, right?
So you're speaking on the carrier side now.
Okay.
I'm asking you, are you speaking on, on the carrier side?
As far as connecting the loads with the carrier, you were saying like it's two different ways, and I was saying
so the two different ways I'm speaking of is now I'm still on the shipper side.
Our side, the broker side.
The broker shipper side, yeah, where when you're dealing with shippers, they'll either have a target rate that they already have and they want you to accept that rate or reject it based off of, they'll send it to you. They'll say, what do you think it is? You say, okay, let me get back with you in a few hours or next business day. Let me do some research on it and to give you my numbers. And you'll come back yay or nay, whether you accept or reject, or they'll say, can you quote a lane? Here's our most difficult lane. It's coming from the Southeast. It's going to the Southwest, or it's going to the Midwest. This is the commodity. This is the equipment type. This is the lane from A to B. You'll do comparables. Comparables in real estate. You'll do the spot market. You put that lane in the spot market load board, whatever resource you have, load board, and you'll see what the rate is being yielded to the carrier, to the truck. And then you'll put your margins on top of that and come up with a number to present to the customer, the potential customer, and see if you guys are cool with that, agree with it, and then go from there. So target rate or quoting the lanes. Those are the broker shipper
I
side.
got it.
All right?
Yes.
So now, design your contract. So this is design your contract agreements. I'm going to put in parentheses, shippers. Okay? This is design your contract agreements. And we're going to put in, we'll put carriers, owner ops, or trucking companies, because those are all the potential customers you can get on the trucking side, on the carrier side. Okay, you can broker loads to trucking companies where you have multiple trucks, or you can do it to specific carriers or specific owner ops. Okay. So carriers could fall under the trucking companies. They can be truck company drivers for the trucking companies, but owner ops are independent. They have their own MC and DOT. They own their truck and trailers, so they are more independent. So, right?
Yeah.
So just the same way we did with the broker shipper, we're going to have a broker carrier packet, right? The actual packet, the verbiage, what the broker's responsibilities are, what the carrier's responsibilities are, what the payment options is, the insurance requirements, everything that's in the packet, whether I offer accessorials as a broker, whatever's in that packet or that agreement, that broker carrier agreement, then we're going to offer that there. So put in parentheses. So the packet includes the broker carrier agreement, right? And so now what do the carrier needs? So with the broker carrier agreement or the broker packet, I'm sending the broker packet to onboard a carrier to my brokerage. So I'm sending them the packet with the agreement. So you fill that out and then you're going to return that as a carrier to me. So I need a copy of the carrier's what? If I want to onboard and approve a carrier in my brokerage, so if you got your brokerage up and running, and if I want to onboard and approve a carrier to my brokerage, if I'm a broker, what are some of the things that I need to see to qualify a carrier?
The insurance, of course, but the
okay,
don't you need
insurance,
like the load information, like the commodity of it, or
no, you're not. No. So if I'm first trying to get a carrier approved as an approved carrier or a network carrier under my brokerage so they can run loads for my customers, just like the same way that you as a broker qualified the shipper, now you as a broker needs to qualify the carrier. So what are some of the qualifiers? And they're somewhat similar in some instances as the shipper, but I need to know that the carrier has enough insurance coverage.
Oh yeah, you want to have the contract.
Right, we got the broker, the broker carrier agreement. Okay.
The contract, the insurance. Don't you need like your authority information?
Right. So I need to know that the carrier has.
A credit, your credit application, so
right.
they know that you have credit to cover everything, and they also have credit to cover everything.
It's the carrier's NOA from their factory company, if they have one, to run on you to make sure that you are factorable, because carriers have factory companies, and factory companies check to make sure that the brokers are factorable too. So it works both ways. But before that, you want to make sure that let me underline this, the broker packet, kind of like similar. And so we need the broker carrier agreement, just like we needed this broker shipper agreement, right? We needed that.
Mm-hmm.
We also needed a copy of, we need to make sure that the carrier has an active MC authority, their authority.
Mm-hmm.
We need to make sure that they have insurance coverage, namely cargo, 100,000, liability, $1 million. Mm-hmm. We need to make sure that they have a W-9, right? Mm-hmm. Because that shows their EIN number that they are a business, right? The EIN number associated with their business, their trucking company, whether it's in their name or whatever the name of their business is. So their authority, their W-9, and their insurance, their COI, okay? Certificate of insurance, okay?
I'm writing all this down.
Okay, so, and then also, if they have a factory company, they're going to send a form, their notice of assignment form, which the factory company tells the broker, hey, instead of paying the carrier, you're going to pay us, and we're going to pay the carrier. So we're going to pay the carrier, let's say, whatever the terms is, let's say up to 90%, we're going to give them of the gross amount of that load. We're going to put 10% of reserve, and then once you pay us, we're going to release the rest of that. And we may even do like recourse or non-recourse factor. I don't want to get too detailed into the type of factoring, but that's essentially how that works. So, all right. So I'll put MC authority there.
Yeah, I got some of the notes down the last 2 classes when y'all was speaking on the factoring companies and stuff and how that works. So yeah, I do have a little bit of information on that when I get there to that point.
Yeah, so what we do is, it's always good to revisit and rehash, especially for new brokers, people who are starting out and want to make sure that, you know, everything is kind of like in place for you. Let me put this here if I can. Okay. So, and I think someone's trying to get in to the training, but so far so good.
Yes, it seemed like a lot, but the way you break it down, like in order, it makes more sense, and it from the studying I've been doing and just getting a little bit of information here and there. It's once I get every step down in order, other things will fall in place and it will make more sense once I reach that. So I just been getting a lot of notes and trying to just, start from A and work my way to Z.
Right. So where are you in you said you were at the process of doing your business plan right now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. My end game, which I'm giving myself about a year and a half to complete. Like I said, my fiance, he's been driving for 18 years and he's been doing oversized loads. Our end game is to open up our own company, our own transportation company. And, he doesn't have his own car, his own truck yet, which we're doing that by the end of this year with our finances and stuff. So I just want to get enough experience and enough information and learning, before we just jump into that. And we're going to try to give him enough time, about a year or two, working as an owner operator before, we just open up a business. So.
Okay. So currently he is a company driver for a company.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So while you guys are learning and building your infrastructure, like you're learning the broker side, and he's eventually going to work on getting his truck and trailer and own authority, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
All right.
And it's good because he actually helps me with a lot of the like the vocabulary and like the wording and stuff, and he breaks certain things down. Like I've been learning the different kind of trailers, the different sizes, and what, which trailer hauls which type of commodity or which cargo. So yeah, he's been helping me out a lot, which is actually a blessing. So
Okay. So now so you're at step 11. So once you've designed your contracts for your broker shipper and your broker carrier, then you basically are going to pretty much, because now you got your infrastructure set up, all your back office stuff, you got everything designed. So if you get a customer, getting customers and or carriers / trucking companies, because you're going to need to get both of these, right? Of course, you're going to acquire the customer so you can move their freight, and then you need to acquire the trucking companies or carriers to move the freight forward. You're the middle person, the broker, the logistics provider. You are arranging for the transportation of moving the freight of your customer shipper by your customer carriers. Okay, you have two customers, whether you realize it or not. One's the shipper, the other is the carrier or trucking company, and we
serve both.
Right, you serve both, and both deserve the respect equally that they are due. Right, if you want to have a successful brokerage, you have to. There's a scale that has to be a balance there, because carriers are just as important as shippers. You can have the best shipper in the world, but if you ain't got a carrier to move their freight, that means nothing. Right?
Yeah, that's the purpose of being in business with the shipper.
Right. So where are we getting customers? So now you're thinking, okay, well, now we're getting into, okay, well, what are the techniques? What are the strategies? And last Friday we had my mentor on, Mr. Irwin, and he was breaking down some things. And what did you guys think, for those who were here last Friday, Mr. Irwin's presentation, if you will, or just conversation? Was it informative? Did he needed to break some stuff down a little bit more? Because I took some notes over what he was talking about. So any comments on that? Anyone who was listening to Mr. Irwin? And I think Mr. Irwin, I don't know if he's spoken to Key or called you Key, or you guys had the conversation yet, but he was very...
Yeah, we did, Charles. And like the class is saying, yeah, he was very informative. I thought he was great. We did have a conversation. I'm supposed to talk to him tomorrow. So I'll keep you updated with that.
Okay, yeah, he was, because the moment I clicked in Zoom, right, my phone rang and, he said, is there a way that I can get in contact with the lady that did the mock call? I was like, oh, you're talking about Key, the sales lady. Yeah. So, yeah. And that's rare that he speaks to me in that way because he's more authoritative figure. So, but yeah, he was very impressed. You did a wonderful job, Key. And I took some notes on I think we need to probably take your presentation and like document it and put it on the website.
Oh
So,
yeah, absolutely.
but
If you want to, I can.
yeah, but it was good. It was good, and then people can take and tweak pointers from it as it applies to their specific brokerage, right? But that's the whole point. We want to consistently work on and master and not even master, but just get used or well, master is a good word. Master talking to shippers, but we want to make sure that we get every possible scenario of a shipper in front of us, as far as like when we do mock calls, what are some of the possible reactions, or what are some of the possible comments and return statements that a shipper will give, and then how you would rebut that. What would be your response to those things? So, but the key points to take away from Key's presentation, her mock call last Friday was, and Mr. Irwin brought it out, is you asked about what do they need? What do they need and how can you solve that need? That was the main point that that he mentioned to me over the phone after the training that everyone could have as a new broker. You always want to be in the need or in the service, because this is sales, right? You are selling a service to a potential customer. Now it's in the transportation industry. I got a book that I read. It's titled I think it's titled Everything, or You Can Sell Anything, or Everything's for Sale. Everything is for sale, right? Everything that we do has some kind of sales overtone to it. You're selling something in some way, shape, or form. Now with us, we're selling a service to a potential customer who has a need at that time. We just have to figure out, based off of our research, when we look at their website and what they have to offer in their services and their commodities and things like that, we have to figure out where their need is. And when we speak to them finally, whether in person or over the phone, we need to target and drill down and specify how we can provide a service for that need. First, we have to identify what the need is. And that's what research does. When you research the company, just like Mr. Nelson said, you don't want to come in sounding green, right? Unseasoned. You want to have at least some information. So by the time you get past the gatekeeper and get to the person who's in charge, whether they're a logistics manager or the warehouse person or whoever is in charge of moving the inbound and outbound freight, then you start that conversation. So, so getting customers and I need to put this, shippers and or carriers / trucking companies. So then you would say, okay, well, what are the techniques? What are the strategies? How do you go after customers? The shippers are probably the more difficult of the ones. The carriers are a challenge, but not as much so than the shippers. Because once you find a good, if you find a shipper that provides you a good lane, a good tender, good paying tender, where you can eat off of it and the carrier can make their money, then finding the carrier for that lane will not be a problem. It's only a problem when, as far as finding carriers, when that lane or that tender is not high enough where the carrier cannot eat their normal rate, right? They can't get their normal amount out of that load, especially if you do comparables on load boards at the spot market, see what they're paying. So, and then you may have to go back and say, Mr. Shipper, I know we agreed upon this, but if you want me to move this freight in these lanes, we're going to have to add at least another $200-300 to the tender amount in order to move this. So you hired me to provide a service. I can't provide that service. And you may not want to say it that way, but I'm just speaking in general, but I may not be able to provide that service at this rate. This rate is not competitive in the spot market or any market. This is probably one of the reasons why you're having difficulty moving after doing my analysis. Your competitors is moving their loads in this lane, but you're having difficulty because this rate is not a good rate. So, but yeah, some of the techniques, you don't want to sound green, unseasoned. You want to sound confident, not overbearing. And I'm just reviewing a little bit for those of you who were not in the training last Friday. You want to research the shipper. How many locations do they have? They're shipping out of this location, but where are they? What other locations are they shipping out of? And you can target those locations as well. Also ask about not only outbound freight, but inbound freight. Who are they getting their supplies from to produce? If this is a manufacturer, who are they getting their supplies to make the products from? Their inbound freight. And then you can target them. Give me a reference. I can call them and say, okay, and talk to them as a potential customer as well. Especially if you get the first shipper and you're doing well with them, and then you could begin to ask about their inbound suppliers and then talk to them and use the shipper that you're working for as a reference. Say, hey, we're moving outbound freight. We're moving in volumes like 20 loads a week for this outbound shipper over here. We noticed that they are one of your customers that you send freight into. We're just trying to see if we can work with you as well. And Jim over at ABC Manufacturing referred us to you. Oh yeah, I know Jim. We play golf together or something like that, so just little things like that. So, Willard, you said something? I thought I heard you, Willard. Okay, I'm sorry. What do shippers need? That is a good question. What do shippers need? How can brokers address those needs? And is it a matter of rate or capacity? Capacity being truck availability, rate being, of course, money, dollars. So, what are the shippers' traffic lanes, or they're basically their lanes? So, Willard, are you trying?
Charles?
Yes.
Now, one of the note that I thought was really interesting that he mentioned is he said, don't experiment with the first shipment for that shipper, or at least for your first shipper. Use an experienced carrier. I mean, just do what you have to do to get it right for that first shipment. I thought
correct. And you know why, right? You don't want to lose the shipper from day one, right? You get a shipper. Of course. You get a shipper and they're giving you most shippers are gonna, if you're a new broker or if you're just new to them, they're gonna test you out with a few loads, like maybe like 4 loads a week, 7 loads a week, whatever, right? But even that, you still don't want to lose the shipper by putting a driver that you just onboarded, right? You want to have an experienced driver that you may have in your network as a brokerage on your team that has experience, that's delivered on time and things like that. You want to have that type of driver running loads. So you always want to put an experienced driver on new shippers in order to gain the trust and the admiration of that potential customer long-term, right? Long-term. And then whether that's a network driver that you just approve, or if you're an asset-based brokerage, you throw one of your company drivers on it, or your drivers from there, but experience. So, right. So yeah, and that, if you think about it, it's just common sense, right? You just want to, put someone with experience on a new customer in order to wow the customer, in order to keep the customer, right? Right. So you put somebody on there that had like 7 accidents in 2 years, you're not going to have that shipper the next day. So, but yeah, that's a great point, Sherry Ann. It's a great point. So, what else? Let's see, what other points I wrote down in my notes from here, because I wanted to kind of revisit that a little bit to give to those who were not there and may not have listened to the recording of it also. Satisfy the shipper needs. And yeah, and I just came across that note that you just mentioned, Sherry. And when you connect with a new shipper, do not do things that are experimental. Select carriers
Right.
and drivers that are reliable, right? So, and then he broke down the follow the produce concept for the refrigerated freight. You know, from Florida, last week of October to Christmas is in full gear. January to May is in high gear. Freight is abundant. First week of June, everything starts to diminish. By the end of June, it's like a ghost town. So you follow it from Florida northeast all the way up to New York, Jersey, Massachusetts. So work your way north in the cycle of produce. And then after that season expires, you pretty much cycle back around and start that process over. You're going to have a few months where you're going to be not seasonal. So you're probably just going to have to pick up spot market loads off the load boards. But if you master that concept of following the produce, especially from a reefer standpoint, then you at least have 7 to 8 months of productivity there from last week of October to the last week of, June, October, November, December, January, March, April, May, June, 8 months. So look at me, I'm counting on my fingers over here, right? So, oh Lord. Advice to new brokers entering the market. Educate yourself concerning brokering, whether it's training, whether it's learning your niche, whether it's understanding what brokers are, what they do, understanding who your customers are and what their purposes are. Your customers as a new broker are the customers themselves, the shippers who you are getting the freight from, and the carriers, trucking companies who you are using to deliver the freight for that customer. Those are your two customers, right? So find a niche to master based off of research. Agility has the refrigerated temperature control niche. Be honest, courteous, and communicate. That's very important in brokering. You will not be a broker long if you lack that skill. Now, I'm not saying you come out the gate with it. That's something you're gonna have to build and grow up on. Yes, Bianca.
Is it okay, like if I, like you said, we gotta find our niche. Is it okay if I like build my brokering off of that specific niche, or is it best for me to explore it into like different categories of different cargo?
Well, so let's do it like this. So, because some people have different opinions about this, and that's everyone's opinion is perfectly fine. So you could have the opinion like, okay, I will just find freight in general and just find equipment types that commodity goes on. Or you could say, I want to specialize in a specific area so I can master that specific area and build my brokerage that way. And then maybe later on down the line, scale to another equipment type. So like, for example, with Agility, they want to specialize in the temperature control arena, the reefer, the refrigerated freight. So they're specializing in shippers who have commodities that go on those equipment types. So they're learning everything about that specific equipment type. What are all the intricacies of that specific equipment type? As opposed to if you are, so there are 3 major equipment types. So if you are bouncing around reefer, drive-in, flatbed, and so you have to learn every little thing about each one of those 3 major equipment types. For some people, you may drive yourself crazy, right? But if you target a specific one type of equipment type and then target shippers for that has commodities for that specific equipment type, learn and master that, become good at that, and understand all the intricacies of that, you know, temperature control, TCU, what temperature should be, what goes, all the stops and all everything that's involved in that specific equipment type, and shippers who have freight for that specific equipment type. It could be drive-in, it could be flatbed, understanding all, then you should be fine. But if you try to mix it all up, you may be able to accomplish all 3 and just wing it, move it around. You may have agents in your brokerage who may be have specialties in refrigerated, temperature control commodities. You may have agents in your brokerage who may have expertise in the dry van general freight arena. And then you may have agents in your brokerage who have expertise in the flatbed type of commodities. So you may compartmentalize your brokerage based off of the expertise of your agents. But starting out, you may not be there. So as a brand new person, one individual, you, without even having a agent yet, it is my opinion, and only my opinion, or suggestion or advice, to find a specific commodity, specific equipment type to target and to learn and grow in that, and go after shippers who have freight, cargo, commodities that go on that specific equipment type. And then maybe after you master that and start getting your brokerage up and running, moving loads for that particular one, then you may be able to entertain the other equipment types. So
that's great. that helps me out a lot, because like you said, trying to learn all the different kind of equipment, and then the different kind of trailers and stuff you have to have, the specific kind of stuff, that is a headache. So yes, and I would like to try to master flatbed. So
okay,
I appreciate
so
it.
now
Thank you.
here's a challenge for the temperature control equipment types, because you're going to have to probably do two at the same time. You may have to get commodities for refrigerated commodities and general freight, because you can use some trailers, you can turn off the TCU unit and use it as a dry general freight dry van. So you may have to mix the two there, but that's still okay. If you can handle it, then go for it, right? But as a new, to prevent from becoming overwhelmed with all of the intricacies of those equipment types and understanding what they are, like what you just said, Bianca, flatbeds. You're going to have to learn the commodities of the flatbed, what goes on flatbeds, what type of flatbeds are you dealing with? Because there are different categories in the flatbeds as a broker: step decks, RGNs, double drops, regular skateboards, 48 by 102s. So you got lumber, rebar, steel pipes, and then you have the accessories that go with the flatbeds: straps, chains, binders, dunnage, pipe stakes. So you have to understand what those things are, what the purpose of what their purposes are, I should say, and what they're used for. So when you get specific customers that has the commodities for the flatbeds, and you see on the tenders that they require, okay, this one, oh yeah, I forgot tarps. You need tarps. So tarp or no tarp? What type of tarp? What's the length of the tarps? Is it 4-foot drops? Is it 6-foot drops? Is it 8-foot drops? You see? So that's a lot of information.
I appreciate that. Yes.
That's a lot of information. That's a lot of information just in the flatbed equipment type. So do you really think you had time to do that as well as the other two? Starting out, I'm saying, starting out. Now, over time, you may be able to, of course, but starting out.
I think I will be okay once I get as far as how the whole broker business is ran, only because, like I said, I am blessed to have my fiance by my side and to have done flatbed for 18 years. So he do help a lot in that area, and we've been together for a minute, and I've learned a few different type of equipment types and stuff like that. But as long as I get it down packed, the different accessories and the necessities that need for the different type of equipment, and I think I will be okay. Just because I have a little bit of familiar with it already. That's
right. Right.
It's a little safe zone.
That's great. You are at an advantage there because you have a fiance who is who drives the equipment type that you're targeting. So he can educate you on those equipment types, the accessories that's included with those equipment types. So when you get shippers that has commodities for those equipment types, you will understand when the shipper says, okay, this load needs to be tarped. When you get to the shipper to pick this load up, it has to be tarped. It needs 4-foot drops or it needs 6-foot drops. You'll understand exactly what they're saying. And then, or they're picking up lumber, it needs to be on dunnage, pipe stakes, strapped in, pipe stakes every 5 or every 10. What they're saying is separation all the way down that 48-foot or 53-foot trailer on either side, either 10-foot spaces or 5-foot spaces to separate with pipe stakes, strap it in, tarp it, whatever, right? So you'll understand all that verbiage because your fiance already knows that stuff, right? So he hauls a flatbed trailer.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Okay.
sir.
So yeah, so he understands. He has an understanding. He's been doing it for a number of years, so you're pretty much safe there. So you choosing that niche.
Yeah, it's a safe zone for me.
Correct.
Yes,
So that'll help you. And that's great because that'll help your transition into brokering. It'll make your transition smoother because you're at an advantage. I don't know if you realize it or not, but you're at an advantage. You have someone who's already there doing it, and you're targeting. You're choosing an equipment type in a niche that you have someone that's already involved in, and they can educate you on the trucking side of it. Now all you have to do is deal with the broker shipper side of it, and you should be okay.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It's a blessing. Yes.
Okay. Anyone else? Any questions, comments?
Charles, I actually have a question unrelated to this topic you're talking about, but it has to do with the carrier agreement. You mind if we step back to that for a second?
Certainly.
All right. With the carrier agreement, so let's say you have a shipper and they've got a load you want to move, but you really don't have a carrier in your network that's available. So you want to kind of go out to the load board and grab any carrier. My question is, in that instance, when time is of the essence, do you kind of go around that carrier agreement step, or do you always have to include a carrier agreement before moving that load?
You always got to have a carrier agreement. You can't. It's I don't want to say it's unethical, but you got to have the carrier. So if you have a brokerage, you already have. Let's say you have 10 carriers under your approved carriers under your brokerage. You've posted a load on the load board from the shipper, or the shipper's giving you a load. You've reached out to your network carriers. None of them are available. At the same time, you've posted a load on the load board. You want to do that simultaneously. You want to reach out to your network and post it on the load board because you want to double your chances of someone calling you saying, hey, I'm interested in that load, right? You don't want to do one and then do the next one. You want to try to do them simultaneously, right?
Right.
Because you double your chances of getting a call on that specific load. At any rate, your network carriers whom you already have approved under your brokerage, none of them are available. They're either under loads or they're just whatever, right? They're not available, reset, whatever.
Yeah.
Now you post a load on a load board, a carrier calls you, you mentioned something about a time crunch. This load needs to be moved. It's not a hot load, but it needs to pick up by close of business today, right? Or close of business tomorrow. Let's not get too crazy with it, right? So
Right.
So by close of business tomorrow. And today is 5 p.m. And you get a call next day, 9 a.m., your time, whatever time zone you're in, from a carrier who's not approved by you. At that point, you have enough time, but you're saying at a point where you may not have enough time, where you may have to go back to the shipper and say, hey, can this load be picked up an hour or two later? Or because you got to go back to your shipper and communicate that with them that, you got a carrier, but they may not pick it up at the time frame that the shipper's customer is wanting it picked up. Is it possible that we can reschedule it for a few hours or next business day and see what your shipper says?
Okay. So it sounds like either way, we need to make sure and work in that contract, that agreement. We need to have that signed before moving forward.
Yes, because you are right. Because you are a broker and you're doing business. You have to have documentation between all parties: your shipper, yourself, and the carrier. You just can't just willy-nilly just put a carrier under a load without having an agreement between you. It doesn't work that way. So
Right.
yeah,
So,
you have,
so it sounds like sometimes you may even, so let's say you go back to that shipper and you know what, they really can't wait another day. I mean, that's just one case of a load that you can't take. You
now let
just
me
give
give
that up.
you right. Yeah, that's the case, but but you want to never be in that situation. Now I had a case where a broker actually sent me a rate con prior to sending me a broker carrier agreement because they wanted that load moves that desperately, which is crazy to me. But hey, and in that situation, they were paying a ridiculous amount for it because it needed to. It wasn't quite a hot load, but it was like lukewarm, if you will. So it had to go because, and the reason being, you have cases where they had a carrier on that load, but the carrier dropped off and said, I don't want to take that load. So now they're stuck, right? And it needed to still be picked up that day. So they happened to repost it on the load board and they happened to reach out to their network carrier. Someone called and said, and the broker said, hey man, we had a carrier drop off. We really need this load moved today. Okay, well, we see you got it posted for $3,500. We'll do it for $5,000. So now you're at an advantage, right? As a carrier, because you got a broker who has a carrier that dropped off on a load and it still needs to be picked up. And their customers adamant about that. This load needs to be picked up. That's not my problem, Mr. Broker, from the shipper. This is not my problem. You had a carrier, they dropped off for whatever reason, but I still need this load picked up. My customer over at Walmart needs this load tomorrow. So a carrier called them, and now the broker has to eat a little bit more or feed the carrier a little bit more to get that load moved because they're like, because they still want to satisfy their customer, but now the broker's margins are going to shrink a little bit. The broker may have like $500 in it, but they got to give up a little bit more money in order to satisfy the customer and get this load moved from the carrier. Mr. Nelson. I can't hear you. You're unmuted, sir. I still can't hear you. Mr. Nelson had his hand raised, but he was asking the question, but I don't. You're unmuted, but we can't hear you. All right, but is that okay?
Yeah, but it sounds like, so even in that case, you put that carrier through your onboarding process. I mean,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, you got to put them through it, get that agreement signed,
Right, because
get all your,
there's things in the agreement that's going to protect you as the broker as well as the carrier. So you have to still put those
right.
things in place for your protection, right? For your brokerage. You don't want to you don't want to just give loads out without having any protections in place for your brokerage and then the same thing on the carrier side. So
Right. Okay, that answers it. Thank you.
Mr. Nelson, someone said, tell him to press *6. I guess to unmute yourself, Mr. Nelson. *6. Terry Harrison said, press *6. I guess that's a shortcut key to unmute yourself. And while Mr. Nelson is doing that, if he's on the phone, he's not. I don't think he's on the phone. I think he's on the computer, Mr. Harrison. So, what else were we talking about? We were talking about the outline here. So, and advice to new brokers entering the market: be honest, courteous, communicate. We talked about back office infrastructure, TMS, load board, accounting software. Oh, office staff and overhead as far as dispatching too. You may get to that point. A day in the life of a freight broker. So for you new freight brokers, right? A day in the life. Like, so you just started, you fresh, you got a customer. So number one, and I'm reading some notes that I took based off of what Mr. Irwin was saying as a review. And we can go into a little bit detail about it. Build a relationship with the shipper, as far as getting the load tender. This is after you've gotten your brokerage up and approved and you're active, you got your business plan, you got your formation of your business, your EIN number and everything like that. You've applied for your authority, you've gotten your bond, everything is active, right? got your hardware, software. So now you're building a relationship with the shipper. However you do that, cold calls, visiting facilities. If you are local in because every major city has business and industrial parks in those cities. So you could probably want to start off local and then branch out, get your local stuff down. That way you can start, if you do local, you can physically visit the facilities and show your face, and then the ones that are out of your driving radius, you would, obviously do the cold calls and sending out email campaigns and things like that. Build the relationships with the shippers, either through phone, email, or EDI. EDI is an integration, electronic data interchange. There's several of them out there. I forget the name of the one that we had. Accept a load tender. If you accept it, be prepared to move or cover the load. So if you accept, so you can reject the load tender. That's why you do the research and see if it's possible, first of all, and your margins, it's possible to move. So when I say a load is possible to move from a load tender, you have to factor in what your margins are going to be, the money that you want to make, and a fair amount or a decent amount that the carrier is going to get, right? That is what possible means. Mr. Nelson, you're unmuted?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir. I can hear you. Yes, sir.
Okay. I'm sorry about that. No, what I was going to say, if we can go back to that about that agreement,
Yes, sir.
It's essential that you get that agreement signed for the simple reason that agreement takes all liability off of your back. You go around that agreement and you load a load on a carrier that you hadn't vetted, that you don't have an agreement with. A carrier goes out there and tears up that load, kills somebody. That transportation attorney is going to sue you and take you for everything that you have, including your kitchen sink. So you got to make sure that agreement is signed. So anytime that carrier has any problems, that liability falls back on that carrier first
Right.
and foremost.
Right. No, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
And Mr. Nelson, and I believe you had mentioned in the past too, to make sure that you're listed as on their insurance, what is it called? Certificate holder.
Certificate holder, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then also too, like there's something in there called indemnity or indemnify. So once a receiver signs once the BOL becomes clean, then the broker is indemnified of responsibility. So because once a receiver receives that freight, they signed off on that BOL, it's over for the broker. He's good, right? And the carrier. So it's a clean BOL. There's no claims. It's clean. The shipper signed it when they picked it up. The receiver signed it when it got delivered. There's no damaged freight. All the pallet counts was good. Nothing got damaged in transit. They signed that BOL. Now it's a POD, proof of delivery, and it indemnifies all the parties that were involved prior to that receiver getting that freight. So, those are the terms and the specifics of it, right? Basically, the broker, you just want to make sure that you arrange for the transportation, but you need to know this eventually, and you will learn it over time, right? But starting out, you want to get your basics covered first, right? You want to get the understanding of what it is that you're actually doing and get all that stuff covered first. But all the other terminology and in the contract and the agreements, of course, you want to read thoroughly and understand your broker shipper packets or broker shipper agreements and your broker carrier agreements, because they are yours, right? This is your company. So you want to understand how your company runs so that you can be successful in your company, right? So, so at least from your side, as from a broker side, you have all your I's dotted and your T's crossed and your bases covered. So you understand all the terminology in that. And again, it's going to come over time. Don't let what I'm saying scare you. It's going to happen in time. And they use big words, but once you define what the words are, you be like, oh, that's what that means? Okay. It just said indemnified. But you know what I'm saying? So it's just another word for I'm no longer responsible for the freight. Once the receiver signs it, I'm relieved of responsibility as a broker. I'm indemnified. So they just created a goofy word and just called it indemnified, but it means what it means, right? So a day in the life of a freight broker, right? Accept the load tender, be prepared to move it, know your truck availability or understand it. Of course, you're building your truck availability as a new broker. You either have network carriers under your already approved, you're putting the loads on the load board, spot market, but you're building that, getting in relationships with trucking companies as well as drivers, carriers, things like that. Making the carriers aware of the loads on the load boards, develop relationships with trucking companies and the drivers especially. Again, I'm reviewing a little bit of what Mr. Irwin was saying for those of you who were not there. And then he made a good point here. It is good if brokers not have to call the carriers to ask for a truck, but the other way around. If the truck or the trucking company, it is better if that carrier calls you and asks for a load because now he's expressed an interest. So you guys understand what that means, right?
Yep.
Okay. So it's basically better that the carrier calls you as opposed to you. Because we get calls from brokers all the time. So they're probably desperate to move a load because if they're out there calling, fishing for carriers, then apparently that tells me a few things, but one of the main things, that must not be a good paying load. Because if you got to be on the phone calling and trying to get your load moved, as opposed to putting it out on your network, either on the load board or whatever you put it out on, and you don't get, and your phone's not ringing, then your numbers, you need to work on your numbers. So, trade credentials, we just talked about the credentials. Credentials being the broker shipper packet or the broker carrier packet, depending on what credentials you're trading. Well, if it's in the day in the life of a broker, then you're trading the credentials at this point because you've already got the load tender, then you're trading the credentials between you, the broker, and the carrier, because now you're in the process of moving the load or the freight or the cargo, right? These are different synonymous terms, okay? Broker carrier agreement, credentials, personal information about the company, the broker. It's good to talk to the driver directly and then the dispatcher. And then as a broker, you want to do check calls, know when the load is picking up, have the driver let you know when they get to the facility, even at the gate, and then because there's times you got to, clock in the time because you're factoring in detention, right? So when does detention kick in? Does it kick in when you get to the gate? Does it kick in when you get on the dock? When your trailer is loaded on the loading dock, right? So there's usually arguments about that, because especially from carriers to brokers, they say, well, my detention kicked in when I got to that facility. I checked in at the gate at this time, so my detention starts there. It doesn't start when I get to the loading dock because I could have been sitting an hour because there was a long line of trucks ahead of me to get to the loading dock. So why would I say my detention kicks in once I get to the loading dock? And this is from a carrier's perspective, right? It just makes sense. Mr. Nelson used to be a carrier. I used to be a carrier. My detention starts when I got to the facility at the security gate.
Yeah, it does start when you get to the facility at the security gate, Charles. But a lot of times too, you'll find that because the shipper is the one that's going to pay the detention time, they'll want to start it at the time that your appointment was.
Great point. Yep.
Yeah, they'll want to start it at the time that your appointment was. Say you got there at 15 till 3, and you didn't get to your appointment time was 3:30.
Right.
You've been there 45 minutes before your appointment time, but what shipper would say, well, he was supposed to have hit the dock at 3:30, so we're going to start it from 3:30.
Right.
Yeah. Also, another thing that I wanted to kind of backtrack on you when it comes to getting a tenure from a shipper. Just because you have that tenure from that shipper doesn't mean that basically you're legal to move that load with that shipper, for the simple reason, you still got to get that shipper's information. I mean, you still got to get that packet filled out. You still got to get his credit report, because that's the worst thing in the world you can do is put a load out there on the load board, move it, and you hadn't been approved by a factoring company because you hadn't got that shipper's credit report to be able to move that freight to be able to pay a driver.
Ouch. Ouch.
And see, a lot of times with big companies, Those packets go to a compliance department. That guy out there, that traffic manager out there on the dock, out there on the floor, he never sees that packet. What they do is once they approve it, they send him their list of carriers, that they put them within the system, their list of carriers that he has available to use. So even with that being said, if he sends you a tenure, you may have to call their compliance department and get all the necessary signed documents back from their compliance department to make sure that you're legal to work with them.
Yep.
So, Mr. Nelson, would you typically request that, you know, they review your packet before you even start, or before me as a broker request to be on their load list?
Well, the thing about it is, Sherry, and you got to realize is that 9 times out of 10, you probably got anywhere from between 300, 400, 500 packets going into that compliance office every day from brokers all over the country. There's nobody going to sit there and read your packet, review your packet, and cater to you. I'm just going to be honest with you. They're not going to cater to you. They're looking for somebody who's credible by a few little things within that packet that they know. They're gonna pull a paydex score on that broker themselves to make sure that, you know, he's reputable. And pretty much that's all they're gonna do. They're gonna file it, and then if you're good to go, they're gonna put it in the system. They don't care who you are. They don't know you from a can of paint. So they're not gonna waste their time with every packet that comes in there reading it verbatim, line to line. They see too many of them on a daily basis.
Right, but I guess what my question is though, what's the sequence, right? So let's say there's a shipper that you're interested in, right? Do you reach out to them to try to get on their load list first, or do you go ahead and send a packet? You know,
well, if you've had a conversation with him, or you somewhat had a conversation with him, and he says he seems somewhat interested, then you send him a packet. If you got an information email address and you think that he may be a good candidate, you could probably send him an email and then send the packet along with the email. So just so happen you don't have a decent conversation with him the first time, you pick up the phone 2-3 days later, or maybe a week later, and call him back, say, hey, you know, we had a conversation the other day, you know, did you get an opportunity to look at my packet? Okay, well, for the simple reason, you know, he may remember the conversation, he may not remember the conversation. But the fact is, if he decides to go back and look in his emails and there your packet is, he's gonna say, well, dang, maybe I did talk to her.
Okay.
But the point is that they're not gonna sit there and read every packet verbatim. You know, they know what their guidelines are. They know what their accessories are. They know what they're gonna tell you when they talk to you. And then after that, you know, it's left up to their compliance department to approve you whether or not they're gonna put you in their rotation to move freight for them.
Right.
Now, once that happens and you start moving freight on a continuous basis, then he may get to know the fact that, okay, this particular broker does this for me, this particular broker does that for me. And then he may decide to use you in his rotation more than often because he had known that you picked up loads, you had carriers come in and pick up loads that you're doing okay. But the fact is that he's not going to, and nobody's going to, especially with big companies, smaller companies, yes. But when you're dealing with 3PLs that you pull into the facility, they got 9 warehouses. They got 15 different companies within those 9 warehouses.
No way.
No way. Matter of fact, even if it comes down to you deciding you wanting to go visit one, you're not getting in the gate, period. You know, the guard's going to say, well, leave a card at the gate and I'll get it to, and then first you may say, well, what facility is he in? What building? Building 1, 3, 5, 8, 9? Because he doesn't know. You can do that in smaller cities and smaller areas and smaller towns, but when you come into major metropolitan areas, especially like the one that I live in, where there's 776 cities and there's an industrial park in every last one of them, you're not getting in anywhere. So it can be a tough skeleton to deal with, but you know, it can be done.
All right. Anyone else? Bianca, we started with you. I know we started like ground zero, and now we are.
My bad, but I appreciate it. So
that's
much.
fine. We started, but this is good. It's good too because
I mean, it really is because like like I said, I've been studying on my own, but it's just been like from everywhere. It wasn't like a specific order, and this broke everything down on like, I said I'm at letter A, this like letter A, B, C, D, E, F, G. So I appreciate it so much. I really do. It
No
helps a lot.
problem.
And Charles, is Bianca the young lady that has a fiance that's the heavy hauler?
Yes,
Yep.
sir.
Yep.
Okay. How are you coming along with that?
I'm coming along, but I'm excited. And the more that I learn, I like to negotiate. So,
Well, he's had from what you're saying, he's had about 18 years of experience. Had it all been heavy haul?
Yes, sir. It's been all oversized load. Yep.
Okay,
Good,
so
18 years.
my suggestion to you is the conversations that you sit in and you have with him. You have with him about permitting. You have with him about getting permits in the lanes that are allowed to run, the states that you're allowed to run from sun up to sundown.
Mhm.
You're gonna have to also learn the different types of equipment, whether or not the well sizes on the equipment, depending on the type of equipment that it's going to be hauled on. Also, whether or not the weight capacity, whether or not that particular type of equipment going to have to have 3 axles, 12 axles, whether it's going to have a truck added to it or whatever. I mean, it's a lot when you're dealing with oversized equipment.
Yeah, we've been going over the different type of axles and
pilot
like
cars.
Different
alternate routes. Alternate routes.
He just had a pilot car. He's on the phone now. Like, he's on the phone all day, every day. He's gone like 3 or 4 months at a time, but he's on the phone all the time. So, like you said, as far as the communication with the shipper and the care, I trust and believe he has to sit and he has to wait because he's too early somewhere. And then as far as like trip planning, that has a lot to do with he's a very great trip planner, and that has a lot to do with having a great carrier, because if somebody oversleep or sleep too long and not there on time, that's a big difference. So yeah, trust and believe. I watch his life on here, and soon I'm actually gonna go on the road with him for about 2 months. So this summer. So yeah, I'm excited and to learn a lot. And he has his days where he has to chain and he has to tarp and stuff like that. So he's teaching me that type of stuff and the different type of trailers and stuff like that. So yeah, it's a lot. It is a lot. Like, it is a lot.
Oh yeah, you're gonna have fun.
I'm excited.
I mean, I'll make a suggestion to you.
Yes, sir.
So you can make to him when you guys decide to buy your truck. In most major metropolitan cities, they have auctions one Thursday out of the month. And what they do is they bring equipment from all over, say within 150, 200, 300 miles sometimes to the major city metropolitan auctions.
Yes, sir.
And it'll be all types of heavy equipment for sale, all types of cranes, all types of trucks, all types of anything that can be hauled on a flatbed that's going to be for sale.
Yes, sir.
And a lot of times those companies that buy this particular thing, they're looking for a specific carrier that can move those pieces of equipment that they buy back and forth. And it may take you 3 weeks to bring it all into the auction. Whatever they have to sell, it may take another 3 weeks for you to take it to wherever who's bought it. So if you can get yourself tied in with the auctions, as being a carrier for the auctions, it's a possibility that he could work per se within 150 to 200 miles. I know that there's a big Alan Ritchie down in San Antonio, and there's one Ritchie's auction in San Antonio. There's a big Ritchie's auction in Fort Worth.
Yeah, I was going to say that. Ritchie Brothers, right? The Ritchie Brothers,
right?
Yeah.
Right.
Wow, that is great information. Thank you so much.
So you guys could actually get yourself tied in with shippers who ship in and move freight through the auctions once a month and have enough work to work within a 250 mile to 300 mile radius of home all month long.
I have a question as well, sir. I live in Killeen, and that's Fort Hood. What about, because he's a ex-military as well. What about military?
You have, first of all, you have to be registered, SAM's registration with the military. Also, when it comes to military contract and moving military equipment, They normally don't latch on to anybody until about 2 years or 3 years into the business,
Okay. Okay.
you know.
That's good information
But
to know.
if you can get yourself registered to where you can run with the military, most of those loads start out at about $6 to $9 a mile
Ooh,
with the military on military equipment.
wow.
So here's a strategy. Work Ritchie Brothers for those years while you're working on the SAMs to get approved, and then you for military.
Right.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. Oh my
Right.
gosh. Yes.
Yeah, I know.
I just put the link. I just put the link in the chat for the Ritchie
And I'm
Brothers.
gonna put it in my favorite. Thank you so much. I really appreciate this information, you guys.
Yeah. Welcome to the network.
This is so cool. Like it really is. I appreciate it so much. Oh
Yeah.
wow.
Matter of fact, between San Antonio, Fort Worth, and Houston, he could. That's a triangular route. I mean, between those three cities,
Mhm.
hauling heavy equipment, because a lot of heavy equipment go to the port in Houston. Also comes in off the port in Houston,
Right.
Okay, so you said Fort Worth, San
Antonio, and Houston.
And Houston.
Okay.
You make a killing. Jesus Christ, you make a killing.
Wow.
Yes, sir.
That is beautiful. Thank you so much,
And he don't have to drive as far.
sir. I really appreciate that information. That's gold right there.
Nope.
Yeah, because actually his company is based off in Iowa. He worked for Eiley. Yeah, it's in Iowa. So he don't even work for a company here in Texas.
He up in cold country. Whew.
Oh,
Yeah. So yeah, he moved freight all over. He like, I can't wait to get a load down there towards Texas. Yeah, he's always in the cold.
Cold in the mountains with heavy equipment in the wintertime.
Oh yeah, I think
Yeah.
the widest he's hauled was what, a 17-foot. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Wait,
Big.
that's wide. Whoa.
Yeah,
17?
yeah. And that's the widest. Yeah. And I was on the phone with them and I was about ready to die.
So he had to be on a route that barely had traffic, pilot
Mhm.
cars front and back.
Yep. Yep. He had 2 pilot cars. He sure did.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Because
Yep.
17 wide, you know.
Yes,
so
that was
the
the
width
yep,
of the truck
that's it.
is 102. That's not, what is that, 9.6? So 17, that's like an extra, Jesus, that's an extra 4 feet on, 4 feet on,
side. Yeah.
4 feet on either side. Yeah.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Jeez.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is this is his world. He's giving me an extra like 15 years of driving. So I'm about to try to do my magic and do my part.
There you go. Okay.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, guys.
No problem. Anyone else? We're ready to shut him down tonight. Anyone else? Good information though, but the network though, so you're a beginner broker, you got people who are brokers themselves so they can, you know, share, bring you up to where you need to be, where they are with any stumbling blocks you come across as far as applying for your authority, business plans, bond, everything like that. So we're here to kind of help each other and lift each other up, you know, provide information. We got a plethora of information. Mr. Nelson knows a lot. I know very little, but I got Mr. Irwin in my back pocket. I got Mr. Nelson in my other back pocket, and I got Mike in my front pocket. So, yeah. So everyone else is okay. We good. See, Chris is in here. Annabelle. Yes, sir.
How is everyone doing?
I'm
I got
okay.
disconnected, but I'm back.
Yes, sir.
So basically, what is the definition of asset broker?
An asset broker, that means you have your own
Assets.
truck. You have your own truck and trailers, your own assets under your brokerage.
Okay,
So-
and now from there, let's say you own your trucks. So that means that you gotta have both of the authorities, like broker and then carriers,
Right.
or just
Of course, yes,
okay.
that is correct. Yes, you still have to have an authority to move that truck, a motor carrier authority. You have a broker authority, but if you're an asset-based brokerage, you still have to have a motor carrier authority to move that truck. Just because it's under your brokerage doesn't change anything. You still have to have an authority. Okay.
And
Right.
You don't
Go ahead.
have to have you don't actually have to have trucks to be asset-based brokerage. you can have your authority, and you can have carriers that are leased on to you. They're still considered as your assets, even if they're leased on to you.
Right. So did you hear that? You hear that, Annabelle?
Yes, I hear that.
Okay.
Excuse me, no, someone is moving here next to me. About that, still like carriers that they're leased on to your company, they're called your asset, right? The one that you have is leasing on to your company.
Correct.
And how do you lease on owner operators? I mean, the question is more focused to the insurance. How do they come in and join?
Well, you can do it. You can do it one or two ways. First of all, you have to set yourself up as a carrier yourself. Okay, you have to get your authority. You have to have your insurance, your BOC3, and your Unified Carrier Registration, just like you were a carrier. And then what you do, you generate a contract carrier agreement, which is basically an agreement that says that these carriers can come in and operate under your authority. Now you can do it one or two ways. You can carry the carriers under your insurance, which what you have to do, you basically have to get them qualified under your insurance, and also their driving record and everything helps to qualify them. It may be some driver that can't qualify, that an insurance company won't approve. Also, right. You can bring them in and with their own insurance. They can run under your authority, but they can purchase their own insurance. Okay. Then this is where you determine the percentage that you're going to pay them under your authority. Are you going to pay them 68%? Are you going to pay them 78%? Are you going to pay them 82%? Are you going to provide the insurance? You know, are you going to provide them personal insurance? You know, just depends on what type of company that you're setting up.
Are most of the insurance companies willing to work with a carrier that wants to bring on leasing on owner operators, or there's some specific one that they're willing to do that?
Well, you have a lot of insurance companies that deals with carriers who have owner operators. You'll find that a lot of the major trucking companies, although they have company drivers, they do lease onto owner operators. And what that is, you know, a lot of people don't understand that it's considered as a safeguard. Say, for instance, you're a carrier and you got 50, 60 trucks, and then you got 25 owner operators. Say, for instance, tomorrow your carriers decide they want to come in and strike. Okay, they don't want to work because of some provision or some guidelines or something that they want, or they want to start a union. Okay, you still got owner operators that are out there that are willing to run because they're under contract. They're not for hire drivers. You see what I'm saying? Right, yeah. And so what happens in that case, insurance companies work with companies who lease own carriers. And there are some who will sit down, have that conversation and find out what your needs are. You know, what do you want to provide for the carrier? Also at the same time, if it doesn't suit the situation that you're trying to achieve, then what's going to end up happening is then maybe they can have that same conversation with your carriers and ask them, how do you want to operate? Well, how do you want to set your insurance up to work under this carrier's authority? Right. Okay. Because in our situation right now, I'm getting my broker's license. My wife is also on the LLC, but she has a trucking company under her name, and we already have trucks under that company. Mm-hmm. So basically, those trucks will be considered our asset broker equipment. That's a separate company, though. It's a separate company. So basically, what it is it's an entity to your company. Right. It's an entity to your brokerage. Okay. Can we bring those equipment to our new authority or no? I don't know if you can. You can operate operate it under your new authority, basically what you're going to have to do, you're probably going to have to go back to the FMCSA and say, hey, you know what we're doing is we're becoming an asset-based brokerage. How do we structure this with this authority and that authority? How do we combine the two?
Excuse me. So the asset-based broker, it needs to be established from the FMCSA.
Yeah.
It's not something that you can do outside of.
No, you can't just jump up tomorrow and say I'm an asset-based brokerage.
No.
I mean, you have to go and make sure that it's legal and binding with the FMCSA.
Right. The FMCSA is the governing body for.
Right. Before throwing that to your shippers or manufacturers, you must be established as a asset broker under the FMCSA. Is that
well,
what
say, for instance, you're a broker and you haven't established yet. You can still go to your shipper and say, hey, you know, I've got this amount of trucks, you know, and basically they're your wife's trucks, or the names are in the trucking company and in her name. So basically you're still coming to them with a legitimate carrier that pretty much represents you.
Oh, so basically it's like just a carrier under
It's
agreement,
like you picked up
right?
the phone and found a carrier for your shipper.
Yeah. I understand what you mean. All right. Well, thank you. Now everything makes more sense.
Yep. It always works that way.
Thank
We
you.
talk about it more, right?
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Anyone else? Thank you, Mr. Nelson. I appreciate it.
That's no problem.
Charles, question for you. Did Erwin ever send you that spreadsheet, that sample?
I sent the email to him about that. What I'll do is call him
Okay.
tomorrow, and because he's probably looking for, because he has 2 storage units that are back to back, and he's moving all his materials out of there. As a matter of fact, I need to go through that stuff with him and see what I can use. So I'll reach out to him about the spreadsheet.
Okay, perfect.
Now, what was the
Thank you.
spreadsheet pertaining to?
It's sort of like it includes the I guess the line items that a typical shipper might send to him. It would include surcharge, the fuel surcharge, and
Oh, yeah. I remember now.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I will reach out to him, and I will update you via email as the results of that.
Thank you.
All right. All right, guys. Anyone else? Okay. All right. Good discussion tonight. Good session. Good. I know Bianca got a lot of information from here tonight. So, and
Yes, sir, and I'm forever grateful. This is like a gold mine tonight. I promise it was.
Yes, and I appreciate that, and thank you, Mr. Nelson, and thank you for everyone else who commented. Everyone else who's in attendance and listening in. This is recorded as always, and it will be in.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson. I appreciate the information.
It's no problem. If I wasn't talking to you guys, I'd be sitting up here having that same conversation with myself.
Wow, I would love to be there.
Same here. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, have a good weekend.
Yeah, have a good weekend.
Be safe. Have a
Have
wonderful
a great weekend.
All righty.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.